Hello, my name is Leonard Rich. I'm the superintendent of the Laurel School District, and it's my honor and privilege to bring you this video message on how the Laurel School District personnel intend to reignite the instructional fires here within the Laurel School District. Let me share a presentation with you. Again, welcome, and the theme of this year is reignite. Education has been somewhat suppressed since March of 2020, and it's our intent to bring educational fires back and bring them back strong. So first, our community tailgate will be this Friday, August 27th, 5 o'clock, against the Northeast Great Pickers. The kickoff is at 7. So the community tailgate will be from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock. We've had a lot of fun with this community tailgate over the last few years, and we look for that to continue. Community organizations are welcome to set up their own area in our parking lot and join in the fun. We do have, again, the theme will be reignite, and we do have t-shirts made, and the design is from our students. As you can see, this front is, we are warming up our swords, getting ready to reignite, and in the back it says Spartan Rise Above. This is a conglomeration of a few different works of art from our students. So we are happy to have this community event to bring us all together and have some good-natured fun, as well as enjoy some new Spartan apparel and cheer on the Spartans to a victory over Northeast High School. So the big idea for the Laurel School District is that we have the ability to be the highest achieving district in Lawrence County as measured by the PSSA exams, grades 3 through 8, and the Keystone exams administered to our secondary students. So please understand, that's the target, that's the goal. We believe we have a great raw product in our students. We believe we have a great teaching staff. You combine a great product with great employees, we should have a great result. So we're extremely excited to see what comes of this year with a full year of instruction. We obviously are aware, and we're going to measure any and all deficiencies, but we're really looking forward to the future and what that might bring. Relative to that, the Laurel School District continues to try and increase the rigor and relevance in the classroom. And one of the things that we're doing is a consistent model of grading. So let's talk grading and reporting in the Laurel School District. Recently, the school board passed an administrative regulation tied to policy 212, the reporting of grades. Grading and reporting in the Laurel School District has been consistently inconsistent through nobody's fault. Let me explain. If you have 75 teachers and they can grade any way that they want, then naturally that leads to inconsistency. Now, there may have been some agreements among grade levels. There may have been some agreements around departments, but certainly at a district level, we had no particular, and we're providing no particular guidance on how things should be graded. Let's explain. So the first thing we need to do is develop a standard-based report cards for grades K to 2. Beyond a grade which has little meaning, what are our students doing and how are they measuring up against a particular standard? So there are performance standards for kindergarten, for first grade, for second grade. And we are used to having a performance-based report card in kindergarten. We are expanding it to first grade this year and second grade the next. There are standards from the Pennsylvania Department of Education with which our teachers are adhering to, and with which they are aligning their instruction to. So we believe, particularly at those early primary levels, that we can give you specific information on how your children are doing against specific skills. So we're very excited about that. And then once we enter the world of the PSSAs and we have letter grades, grades 3 through 8, plus the secondary level, the majority of what we report should be based upon summative assessments. A summative assessment are things counted for right and wrong. tests, quizzes, projects, essays, research papers, all of those things that are graded for right and wrong count as a summative assessment and should be the preponderance of the grade. Grade inflation is a problem. We have a system that elevates grade point averages and does not align with achievement, AP scores, ACT, SAT, state assessments, etc. All those things should be correlated. So, what are we going to do? Course grades, grade 3 through 12, will have categories with corresponding weights. The first category is assessment. Again, anything graded for right or wrong. Well, it was homework. Okay, was it graded to be complete, or were the homework problems graded for correctness? If it's correctness, it counts as an assessment. So you can have a take-home test. You can have an outside project. You can have a conventional test. You can have a quiz. You can have an essay. Anything, a lab report, anything graded for right and wrong, and therefore correctness, is an assessment. Now, there also is the giving of credit for things completed outside of class, independent work. The most easy reference would be homework. So anything done beyond the classroom where credit is given for an attempt or for completion, you have this homework assignment. I'm not grading it for right or wrong, but if you complete it, I'm giving you 5 points. That's an independent work grade. The last thing is anything that you might give for participation while they're in class. Hey, they were there, they participated actively in the lesson, we're going to give them some credit. That's a participation point. So there's only 3 categories, or everything can fall into 3 categories, and you will see that on teachers' grade books. That's how your child will be assessed. The last thing is the role of bonus. Bonus is not required, nor is it forbidden. However, it shall not constitute more than 2% of any one category. So, might it make a difference if a student is on the bubble? Perhaps. Is it going to replace poor performance? It won't. We already have, and we will continue to have, a basement for the first and third 9 weeks of 56%. That meaning that if someone gets a 74 the second 9 weeks or 74 the fourth 9 weeks, then that grade then equates to a 65 for the semester, and they still can get credit. Again, there will be no grade beyond 100. Of course, we also have an attendance policy. So again, the weights, which I'm about to explain, will be different based upon whether it's a regular course, an honors course, or an AP course. As the rigor increases, so will the emphasis based on assessment. Let's look at student 1 here. Okay, so the student is in a regular course. That's grades 3 through 6, and that's any course 7 through 12 not labeled honors, college and high school, or AP. So, in a regular course, assessment will count for 60% of the grade. Homework or independent work will count for 30% of the grade. Participation will count for 10% of the grade. In an honors or college and high school credit course, it will be assessments count for 75% of the grade, independent work for 15% of the grade, and participation for 10% of the grade. Now, please understand, maybe a teacher doesn't give homework. Okay, then the grade will be calculated on the remaining 2 categories. Maybe a teacher doesn't give participation. Okay, then it'll be graded on the remaining 2 categories. We know that all teachers are going to have to summatively assess students, so we know that will always be a category. And again, bonus is neither required nor forbidden, but it will be limited to 2% of any one category, no more than 2%. And then finally, an AP course, which is the highest level of rigor that we have, 90% based on assessment, 5% based on independent work, 5% based on participation. So exactly how would that then translate, and why does that make a difference? So let's look at student number 1 here, okay? Now keep in mind, a teacher might assign points. That's okay. Ultimately, the program is going to convert that anyway. So a summative assessment, let's say the summative assessment average of student number one is an 88%. Their independent work, they did almost all their homework at 95%. And when they were there in class, they got their participation points. So then how would that look from a regular course to an honors course to an AP course? So in a regular course, an 88% summative assessment grade equates to 53 out of a possible 60. 95% of 30 is 29. 100% of 10 is 10. Therefore, a student with a summative assessment average of a high B now would have a low A. A student who is in an honors course with these same percentages, 88% of 75 is 66, 95% of 15 is 14, and 10% of 10 is 10. Therefore, this student, their grade would be elevated 2% beyond the summative assessment average and would have a 90%. And finally, in an AP course, if a student had a summative assessment average of 88%, they would get 88% of 90, which is 79. They would get about 4.75 out of the remaining 5 for independent work, and they would get 5 for 5 for their participation. You can see that the most closely aligned relationship between summative assessment, which is the truest measure of achievement, and what we are reporting to you is the AP. So again, we do understand that if students do homework, they want credit for homework. We do understand that students who participate might want some credit for participating, and those things could be part of an overall grading strategy. But we also believe that in terms of grading and reporting, the more rigorous the course, the more the grade should reflect achievement on summative assessments. So another indicator that we addressed is high honor roll and honor roll. So for example, these are the numbers that we had from the final honor roll of 2020, grades 7 through 12. Out of nearly 100 graduating seniors, 44 were on high honor roll, 26 were on honor roll. You can see that over 150%, or I should say that high honor roll is 50% higher than honor roll in 11th grade. You can see there's more high honor roll students than honor roll in 10th grade. You can see that there's about 60 of 85 or so 9th graders. So what we have here is if a preponderance of students make the honor roll, is the standard rigorous enough? Grades 7 through 12, honor roll used to be a minimum GPA. High honor roll was a minimum GPA and would allow for a grade letter C to be on the report card, but still be honor roll or high honor roll. That didn't make sense. So we eliminated the ability in our criteria of any student who receives a C or lower to be on honor roll or high honor roll, therefore upping the ante not only to meet a minimum percentage, but also no grade shall be lower than an 83%. Also, the board took action earlier in the summer on guidelines for instructional planning related to issues facing American students. In sum, we no more want to ignore issues, we want to address issues, but we need to address them factually and within context. Members of the instructional staff in public schools, specifically and including the Laurel School District, must teach the required instruction topics efficiently and faithfully using materials that meet the highest standards of professionalism and historical accuracy. Efficient and faithful teaching of the required topics must be consistent with the established standards. Instruction on the required topics must be factual and objective and may not suppress or distort significant historical events such as the Holocaust, slavery, the Civil War and Reconstruction, the Civil Rights Movement, and the contributions of women, African American, and Hispanic people to our country. Examples of theories that distort historical events and are inconsistent with approved standards include the denial or minimization of the Holocaust and the teaching of critical race theory, meaning the theory that racism is not merely the product of prejudice, but that racism is embedded in American society and its legal systems in order to uphold the supremacy of white persons. Instruction may not be utilized from the 1619 Project and may not define American history as something other than the creation of a new nation based largely on universal principles stated in the Declaration of Independence. Instruction must include the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and subsequent amendments. Efficient and faithful teaching further means that any discussion is appropriate for the age and maturity level of the students, and teachers must serve as facilitators for student discussion and do not share their personal views or attempt to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view that is inconsistent with state standards. We are not ignoring history and controversial history and lessons in history. We are addressing them as we should. I firmly believe, I firmly believe that we should take the standard, particularly when it comes to civil rights, of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I want to be judged by the content of my character. I don't want someone to assume because I'm Caucasian that I am of a particular opinion. We are not predestined to be suppressors nor victims. So, to that end, we also will not deny the Holocaust. I find it hard to believe, but there are Holocaust deniers out there saying that 6 million Jews, another 6 or 7 million Slavic peoples, about 13 million people did not die within the Holocaust. We're not going to minimize that. These issues need to be addressed. Prejudice needs to be addressed. Racism needs to be addressed. No problem whatsoever, but addressed within a historical context and addressed teaching our students how to think, not what to think. Okay, COVID-19 protocol. So COVID-19 is still here. It hasn't left. I believe we are headed in the right direction, but it is something that we still need to address. So first of all, as far as masking, at this time, the district will not require face coverings unless directed to do so by local, Commonwealth, and or federal governments. So there is no local Lawrence County mandate. There is no state mandate. There is no federal mandate. Masks are optional within the Laurel School District. Modifying facilities for physical distancing, use of cohorts and podding. We're not going to do that. Spacing will be as feasible, but ultimately the classroom setup will be up to the teacher to promote the educational experience. We cannot be monolithic in our attempt to address COVID-19 and the educational function with which we serve. First of all, COVID-19 statistics. From birth to 9 years old, there's been exactly this many mortalities in the state of Pennsylvania. If you look at all school-age children, it is 0.01%. Now, granted, any death is a tragedy. I'm not wishing ill on anybody, but we need to look to be practical. We need to look to be responsible. We shouldn't be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. We need to take appropriate measures, but we also need to understand and respond to the data. Therefore, classrooms will be set up to promote the educational experience. I understand these students for 3 years, for damn near 25% of their public school experience, have had to go through some sort of mitigation. But we also cannot ignore the needs to engage with one another, to react off of facial context, to give facial expressions, to express ourselves emotionally. Social emotional development is a critical part of the educational experience. Hand washing and respiratory etiquette. All students and staff will be reminded about proper hygiene via educational tools. Again, we're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're not saying we don't need to do things. We need to be responsible. All students and staff will be reminded of the importance of proper hand washing. Hand washing with soap and water should be done for 20 seconds at regular intervals throughout the day. Reminders about proper ways to cover coughs and sneezes will be visible. Reminders to students and staff to avoid touching their face. And alcohol-based sanitizers with at least 60% alcohol will be made available. COVID-19 continued. Cleaning and ventilation. So proper cleaning will continue. Our water fountains will still be covered. You're still encouraged to bring water bottles. We still have our misters that we can use with the maintenance staff in the evenings. So we are doing the best that we can as far as cleaning and maintaining facilities. Contact tracing, isolation, and quarantine in collaboration with state and local health departments. Let me explain. So we understand that PA and DOH have certain recommendations for isolation and quarantine for schools. One, we must by law report all positives, and we will. Two, we can assist in contact tracing, but it's the responsibility of the Department of Health to quarantine. The Laurel School District does not have the authority to quarantine. Let me say that again. We will report all cases. We will assist the Department of Health in social contact tracing. But only the Department of Health has the power to isolate and quarantine. So based upon what is reported, and we have to submit what's called a line list to them. Like I said, we must report that line list to them. That's an expectation. Based upon that, they will then determine any isolation and quarantine, and it must be their directive, not ours. Diagnostic and screening testing. We are not going to participate in diagnostic performed testing on site at school. Efforts to provide vaccination to the communities. We are glad to provide any information that anybody wants about vaccine clinic sites available in and around our community. But whether anybody takes a vaccine, because a vaccine is medicine, that is the responsibility of the family. You decide whether you get a vaccine or not. You decide if your child 12 years or older gets a vaccine or not. That's not up to us, and nor should it be up to us. We will neither encourage nor discourage vaccination. Medicine in the body is an individual and family decision. We obviously will always take appropriate accommodations for students with disabilities, and we will respect their health and safety concern. And also we will continue to work with the Department of Health and if contacted with the CDC. So what happens if a student is COVID positive and removed from school? So a question came up. What if somebody's sick? What if they have COVID? Well, I said pre-pandemic, if a student came to the nurse's office with a 102-degree fever, what would we do? Send them home. Well, if you have COVID, and that's when we know that it's a transmittable disease, we're going to send you home. Students grade 7 through 12 may use the half hour in the morning to communicate virtually with teachers. and have asynchronous assignments pushed out to them. Elementary teachers will utilize Google Classroom to push assignments out asynchronous. What happens if we get 4 to 5 cases in a building within a rolling 14-day period? Well, that was guidance from a previous year. We are not under a governor's emergency order. All those mandates and things related to the executive order are moot. What happens if the state mandates schools who are in counties with substantial level of community spread close? So again, it's not that the Laurel School District's making that decision, but if our governing body, the state, the Commonwealth, Pennsylvania Department of Education, mandates that schools within a substantial level of community spread close, and we are in one of those counties, one of those schools, we have to follow that mandate. Teachers will report to school and utilize the technology from last year to provide a synchronous education during the closure. What happens if a student or group of students want to stay home and want to be synchronous while other students are in physical attendance? This year, the Laurel School District is not providing a synchronous option for students while we have an opportunity for physical distance. What happens if a student gets off the bus without a mask? It's federal law to wear a mask on the bus. We'll be giving reminders and making announcements. We're not there to harass your children one way or another. We're making you aware of this federal mandate and we're moving on. What happens if a student is symptomatic or tests positive for COVID? So the sick student or positive person will be sent home and cannot return until proof of a negative test 5 days after testing positive, and then they can come back on day 7 or later, or complete a 10 to 14-day quarantine. We will perform contact tracing and report to the Department of Health. We will only execute their directives for quarantine and isolation. We do not have the authority to quarantine and isolate. So one thing I ask you to do is do not conflate two separate issues. You have the first issue of someone is sick with COVID-19. You have the second issue of social contact tracing. So if someone has tested positive, is symptomatic, they're sick. You always expect the nurse to handle a sick person. The social contact tracing is not the sick person. It is anybody who was within 6 feet for 15 minutes within the last 24 hours. We'll create the line list. We'll send the line list to the Department of Health, and then we'll await their guidance. What happens if a student wants to wear a mask? Masking is optional, stated as such in the health and safety plan. Again, just as medication is a family decision, at this point, since there is no mandate, masking is a decision. You want to wear a mask? Wear a mask, and you shouldn't be harassed for wearing one. If you don't want to wear a mask, don't wear a mask, and you shouldn't be harassed for not wearing one. We need to be able to engage with one another in this American society without being personal. We can disagree without being disagreeable. What happens if a student goes home sick due to COVID, or a person is ordered by DOH to be quarantined? Anyone in isolation or quarantine would be treated the same as a student with an extended illness, because we've had those things before. Teachers should utilize Google Classroom to push out work in an asynchronous environment. The middle high school has an advantage where they have a half hour in the morning where students who are out for an extended period of time could virtually meet with the teacher and catch up. The elementary will have to use 8:40 to 9 o'clock, a prep at the teacher's discretion, after school or at another time to try to meet with the student. So some other reminders. Don't forget, any elementary school, remember, everyone needs to have the signed bridge handbook form and pay the insurance technology fee to the issued device. Those who signed and paid last year only need to pay an additional $10. That's a renewal fee, but all students will need to have a signed form and need to pay $25 to be issued a device. So again, if you paid $15 last year, you only own $10, that's $25. If you're new to this, you owe $25, so everybody's the same. Moving forward, I don't anticipate a renewal fee beyond the cumulative $25. Please send a water bottle with your student. They will need a water bottle to get a drink because our water fountains are closed and we only have bottle filler stations. In the middle and high school, don't forget, school starts at 8:15. The doors will open at 7:45. If you are dropping off your child, please avoid using the bus lane. Students wishing to use a district Chromebook must bring in the $10 renewal fee to cover insurance. Chromebooks will not be distributed unless money is received. Transportation. Under federal law, public school buses are public transportation. As such, they're governed by federal mandate. Students are to wear a mask on the bus. We will offer friendly reminders. No student will be harassed if they forget to wear a mask. Cafeteria. Positions are open immediately. If interested, please call Carrie Bonyak at 724-658-8940, extension 1945. The supply chain issue may affect meal offerings, and there are shortages in labor may limit offerings on the main line and a la carte service. In the business office, don't forget, in addition to the cafeteria, we have openings currently for a full-time custodian, a part-time instructional aide, substitute custodians, substitute aides. If you're interested, please inquire at 724-658-8940, extension 3922. That's Jen Conrad, our business administrator. In conclusion, let us reignite the instructional fires of the Laurel School District. Let us all strive to reach a standard of excellence in all that we do. May we capitalize on our ability to achieve and place Laurel at the top of the achievement pyramid. May our instruction utilize relationships and make rigor and relevance possible through authenticity. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your attention. And again, if there's any question, comment, or concern, please do not hesitate to contact me via email lrich@laurel.k12.pa.us, or you may call me on my phone 724-658-8940, extension 3919. Thank you, and hope to see you at the tailgate.